Should be on Zoom. I think Pastor Bob's on there.
Invite you to join me in prayer. Oh, good and gracious God, we pause as we begin this meeting to acknowledge your presence with us here and now, your presence with us in all times and all places. We ask your presence might be particularly aware to those who gather as the City Commission, especially as they go through this time of transition. We do so, we give thanks for the service that has been provided by Mayor Matthews and Commissioner Snavely. And we look forward to the service of the new commissioners and pray that you would bless them and guide them in their work. So we pray that you would be with incoming commissioners Hutchison and Belden. Be with this community as we move through this particular time of year, this time of year in which many of our citizens will seek to gather together as much as they are able to do so to mark this Christmas season, the joy of the season. And also as many will not be able to do those things that have meaning to them. Nevertheless, may the joy of the season not escape us. And we pray for our nation as we go through a transition in administrations and as we continue to deal with the COVID virus. We give you thanks for the vaccine, which has been started to be administered. We pray that indeed it will live up to the expectations, and that we will soon be able to move back into more normal things. So now be with the commissioners as they go about their work this evening, and may it be for the good of this community. This we ask in the name of the one who came not to be served, but to serve. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
No changes to the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Christie.
Second.
I have a second from Keaton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comments. Any public comments? Okay. Proclamations, recognitions, presentations, and items scheduled at a certain time. Commission reorganization.
I heard from the county clerk who certified the elections for this year for November 3rd. And our two top vote getters are Regina Belden and Ashley Hutchinson. Regina got 1,270 votes. Ashley got 1,670 votes. Normally, I like to read the write-ins, but there were 17 or 18 of them. But a note would be that Toby Nosker received 6. And he goes up a little every year, and I think people are trying to say something.
You got any pins left, Toby?
So at this time, we do have Regina on Zoom, and she has her oath with her. And has actually returned it to me signed just so that we can say that she has seen it. And so she'll do the oath and Ashley will do that. We'll read them at the same time. So Ashley, you want to come up? We can see. So I will have you both raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Ashley Hutchinson,
Regina Belden,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the
That
Constitution
support the
of the United
Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution
Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties of
and faithfully discharge the
and
duties of
faithfully discharge the duties of
City Commissioner,
City Commissioner.
City Commissioner,
so help me God.
So help me
so
God.
help me God.
Congratulations. You two were dismissed for now.
Do we need to do?
Not to be
the-
rude, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Come on, Ian.
But we have to make a place to actually sit.
We might have done this a little bit backwards, but we do want to definitely say thank you both to Mark Matthew and to Keaton Staley for your service for the last 3 years on the commission. We do appreciate it. You guys have done a wonderful job. Thank you for being honest, forthcoming, candid comments, really engaged as a commissioner. You really represent, definitely care about this community, and it shows through. So thank you guys both very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll have Ashley come up and take a seat.
How do I get this screen? This screen.
So at this time, the commissioners, you guys will need to elect a mayor. So you guys can decide that. You can make nominations, but do go ahead and we have to vote on that action at this time. The mayor will serve as chairman of this board and will take probably the prime lead in serving on any requests for representing the commission. Any commissioners are welcome to anytime that would make an invitation, but we would ask the mayor to take the prime lead in that. The mayor is also the required one to serve on the Frank Carlson Library Board by statute. And then another commissioner will be designated for clerical board of directors, but at this time we do need to elect the mayor. Yeah, and the mayor pro tem, yes. That would take the place of the mayor in their absence.
I would like to nominate Chuck Lano.
Second.
I would accept. I would nominate Christy Hash as mayor pro tem.
Second.
Nomination seats, you have a motion for that?
I move that nominations cease.
Second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Chuck Lambert as mayor and Christy Hash as mayor pro tem. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Appreciate the nomination. Hope to be a good steward of the position. So designation of city commissioner to the Frank Carlson Library Board. So, city manager stated it would naturally be the mayor. That's part of the bylaws, correct? The library. So with that, do we still need a formal nomination for that?
I move that Mayor Lambert's serve or be appointed to the Frank Carlson Library Board.
Second.
It's been moved by Christie, seconded by Marcia, that I be appointed to the Frank Carlson Library Board. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Designation of city commissioner to the Cloud Core Board of Directors.
Marcia, are you currently on,
I'm the secretary of Cloud Core.
and are you willing to continue? Are you representing the city now?
No, I'm in a large
You're
position,
at large.
so it needs to be somebody else.
Yeah, we have an official position on the Cloud Court Board from the city,
Yeah.
so yes, I agree. Need another commissioner.
Would that free up us, would there be an opportunity to switch that so you would be that position for Cloud Corp and that would open up an at-large for them to appoint someone? Do you think they'd like that opportunity?
I think they'd probably rather have somebody else in the
Sure.
city, I think. So,
You miss your time in that office.
Yeah,
I would nominate, actually.
okay.
I second the nomination.
Come full circle.
It's been moved by Marcia, seconded by Christie, to appoint Commissioner Hutchinson to the Cloud Core Board of Directors. All in favor, say, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Then at this time, we'd like to take a brief break, just to kind of celebrate our outgoing commissioners and welcome our incoming commissioners. Stacy has prepared a wonderful spread over there of cookies and cupcakes and water. Everything's prepackaged and individually wrapped, so there's no sugar touch points. So we do want to take about a 10-minute break, is that what you said?
Yeah, and the goodies down on the end are come from Marcia.
Oh, yes, thank you, Marcia.
The same.
We'll take about a 10-minute break and then we'll reconvene and finish our agenda.
You need to take a formal break.
Um,
I would move to recess for 10 minutes.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to recess for 10 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Did you conclude that?
Stacy, did you make the cupcake?
That stuff came from God's and chocolate chip cookies are frozen. They're already in.
Wow.
It's weird. When you buys those, they come in like a pack of a dozen, but then when we get them out of the oven, it's thin, and I don't know what happens. I think when they come out.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't.
The best brand is Satisfier.
Oh,
I think,
There are a
I
couple.
don't know if they sell them as much. They sell them in I can't
They always find something
or something.
into the-
Yeah, and they come in a box.
Into the,
And, oh,
drainage pipe, they just put some mulch there, probably needs to be rocked or something. Keep it from burning out.
Some of our beef keep in Kensington.
That's what it shows on that plan, it's got great operation.
that's the only place I go.
We talked about that, so that's just.
I love some
I had
stuff
another
from here,
question.
but yeah, when I do the processing, and I was lucky, I got like the middle of March.
There's some drainage going out there, we're planning some shows, they try into the drainage that's there already. Just a-
That about that, when that comes when you college.
I gotta pick.
I think
You're on the other
She doesn't
corner,
get the date.
southeast going the other direction.
No, you're talking, there's only one southeast. It's
Hour, 2 years out.
northeast.
There's a group of us that were gonna go ahead and just, when they're trying to just give pigs away. You're like, we have a vet, we have other guys that have like. we can-
You ever done that?
We were gonna.
That's what Linda Bauman did. They're raising all the Baumans.
I
I just don't know
believe.
what it's.
I would have been more of a supervisory role and providing emotional
Just don't
support.
see no doubt.
Ties into the drainage over there.
It's a lot of fat.
Open ditch. It's all free. I don't know if ties into that, it just dumps out.
No, don't be offended. I
None
don't see me
taken.
doing that either.
None taken.
I don't have.
I'm always up for it.
It ended on the
Oh,
sheet.
yeah. I would do some of your experiences. I guess.
No, but like. Well, I mean, 2 in 1 night.
2 in 1 night,
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting. Moving on to the discussion agenda, review of ordinance 2020-3170.
To every meeting reviewing the mask mandate ordinance that we have put into place, and we have multiple metrics that we're taking a look at that are based on some guidance from KDHE that take into consideration school gating criteria as well as our local and regional hospital capacity. One thing I will advise is that on the community gating criteria is the top sheet that I've handed to you. The local regional hospital capacity, the metrics here are based on the statewide capacity, and Dave Garnis has shared with us that that is the number of beds that are registered or certified at the state that may or may not necessarily reflect the accurate how many beds are staffed across the state. So we're going to defer to Dave's expertise when it comes to local and regional hospital capacity and how that's being impacted. And I'd like to invite him to share that first, and that way if he needs to go, he can go, or if he wants to stay for the rest of the discussion, he can.
Sure. I would say my report this 2 weeks is kind of good news, bad news. What we are seeing is that we have the swabs, the drive-through swabs have plateaued and started to creep down. So that's very good news. We've seen, I think, as you see in NCK today and such, we've seen the numbers of positives cases start inching down. Bad news is we've definitely seen a death toll rise, which may or may not be proportionate with that. So I think it's good news, bad news. The good news, I do definitely think, and I speak for my medical staff, that we do feel like the masking is helping. Bad news is that we continue to see a high rate, highest number of positive employees that we've seen is right now. Keep in mind, they've been taking care of a tremendous number of inpatients, as well as people coming into the clinic, going through drive-through, so they have a lot of exposure. So we've seen those numbers go up. So we have quite a number of positives right now. Half of those numbers are our nursing staff. I would say that the other continued bad news is that upstream demand or upstream capabilities
are still very, very difficult and almost impossible to continue to find beds. So those issues continue to be at the forefront when we need to transfer people out. So good news is we are seeing numbers slowly creep or plateau down. Bad news is, unfortunately, we have staff that are sick. We still have inpatients, and we're seeing we're seeing those numbers continue to stay strong. But the upstream is still the number one issue. Any questions that I can answer? Criticism?
Certainly no criticism, lots of questions, but I'm not sure that many that you'd be able to answer.
Sure. I think in the prayer, it was noted, vaccinations. We want some quick stats on that.
Sure.
So I believe there's about 23,800 vaccines that are being or have been distributed into the state of Kansas. I don't know whether this number is right, but the number I saw yesterday is there's approximately over 123,000 healthcare workers, as nursing home, clinics, hospitals, the whole thing, in the state of Kansas. So in all reality, that 23,000 is what, about a fifth of the healthcare population. So, but it is out there. You saw earlier this week, Wichita and that type of thing, they're starting to inoculate their employees. We are in the process, and just to be perfectly honest, we are starting to get vaccines tomorrow for our staff. So we will, over the next 5 days, be able to inoculate as many people as we can in what we have capacity, what we're allotted. So I can speak for the Sunflower Health Network hospitals that virtually every hospital in our health network is getting vaccines starting tomorrow. So that's all positive news. And, the other positive news, I believe tomorrow, Moderna, which is the second vaccine that's going to be theoretically emergency use authorization approved, will be reviewed and approved tomorrow. And it sounds like there's more capacity for that to come out. Probably starting next week and the first week or the last week of December. So that's all positive news. That does have, you don't have to store that in the super cold 70 to 90 below temperatures, which there's only 5 of those freezers in the state of Kansas. Of them in Concordia, by the way. So the Moderna vaccine is much more user-friendly, if you would, because it can be stored in a regular pharmacy freezer, which is basically a really expensive freezer that you would have in your house. So that's going to be making more and more accessible, I think. We can see how that rolls out, but I feel like we're making strides and seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel in regards to vaccines. So there's the latest information as of about 3 o'clock today.
Dave, I have a question.
Sure.
Just more technical one. If you get like the Moderna shot and you have to have the same Moderna second shot.
That's correct.
So these vaccine that you're starting tomorrow, those people will have to.
That is correct.
have-
So when they send out 23,400 or 800, whatever the number is, shots this week, 28 days, the same manufacturer has to send out those same 23,000
So you don't
shots.
have to store them,
We don't have to store them.
you just have to use them right away.
We have, from the time that the vials, and they'll come thawed to us, the vaccines they'll come thawed, and we have 5 days to give those shots before they have to be destroyed. And once you poke into the vial, you have 5 hours to use up those 5 shots, otherwise they have to be destroyed. So there's a whole lot of coordination that goes into it, of taking it out and poking it, what do they call it, mixing it with the saline word, constituting. That's the word that was not in my head, but once you reconstitute it, that's when the time starts to tick. I've learned more about vaccines in the last 2 days than I have in my previous 28 years. So, anything else I can answer? Thank you.
The last time we took a look at this, we had suggested that based on the color banding for the 2-week positivity rate and the cumulative incidence rate, if we took a look at that, as long as we were in the green or the yellow, we would probably recommend lifting our mask ordinance. Right now, we're still in the red on one of them, and in the red for the positivity rate and in the orange for the incidence rate. And I wanted to put some context to those numbers. So the graphs that you have for the positivity rate, it shows actually that we're increasing in positivity, but as you can see, the numbers of positive cases are actually going down. So what that tells us is of the people testing, more people are testing positive, but the total number being tested is decreasing, which is consistent with David saying about how we're seeing a decrease or a plateau. So I think it's important to provide context to percentages given. The second graph that you have is the 2-week cumulative incidence rate. And you can see that that number is going down. So that's why we wanted to provide that context to the positivity rate, because you can see that those numbers are decreasing. The threshold to go from red to orange is 150. And so our 2-week cumulative incidence rate, which is the number of new cases per a population of 100,000 people over the course of 2 weeks, went down to 144. That's below the 150. So we got to change from red to orange. So that's a good thing. We are moving in the right direction. That's great. A couple of other items of note here. I did talk a little bit with Quentin Breeze. He had mentioned during a conversation last week that the school is looking at considering changing their gating criteria slightly. And this is based on what's good for kids. They know that elementary school kids really need to have in-person learning and have those touches, and that's very, very important. And what they're also seeing as they study the data is that the virus is not transmitting as readily or as easily through those younger age children. So they did work with KSDE, and the gating criteria has changed such that if the schools continue to follow certain protocols, they can now keep their elementary school students in an in-person or hybrid learning model. The elementary school kids don't necessarily have to go remote, even if the community metrics show that they should be in remote. So that is nice, and each county can make that decision, each school district can make that decision. It's really important to be able to get that local control back to those superintendents and the school boards that know what's best for their kids. So that's a good thing for us. And I know that our school district is trying very, very hard to keep their kids in school through all grades, but it's especially good for those elementary school kids. Another thing to note, I asked Quentin about absenteeism rates this year compared to last year, because we know that the wintertime usually brings on a lot of sickness anyway and a lot of absenteeism. And he shared that they're hovering right around about where they were last year. So the attendance rate this year is at 94%. At the same point in time last year, it was at 95.6. So it's hovering right about the same, which is a good thing. Again, people are doing what they need to do, staying home when they're sick, and things are not spreading. So, and the absenteeism rate is not distinctive or unique just to COVID cases. That's to all types of illness. So that's very, very good that it's staying right around that same number as last year. The last thing I'd like to, or I guess 2 more things. One, looking at the KDHE website, there are no clusters listed on the KDHE website for Cloud County, and a cluster is defined as a single identifiable organization that has 5 or more cases tied back to that organization. So having no clusters in Cloud County is a very good thing. And finally, I believe that I didn't get a chance to visit with Brandy Bray yet. I know she's been extremely busy as well, but I do believe that the county did agree to go with the shortened quarantine timeframe back down to 10 days. That's a good thing. As I understand that there aren't any additional restrictions with that 10-day quarantine. So that should help our employers out a lot, which is very, very good. It's also my understanding that it doesn't necessarily follow the science. So people could still become symptomatic between day 10 and day 14, but it does allow people to get back to work if they so choose and if their employers allow. So that's a very good thing. So quarantine's reduced from 14 days to 10 days for us, which is good. So that's the information that I have for you right now. We welcome any discussion, any questions, any homework items for me for next time. But again, the purpose of this discussion was to consider at what point in time should we lift our mask mandate. I know that the county had passed a similar ordinance to ours. They plan to look at it every 30 days. They did not discuss it Monday of this week. They plan to discuss it, as I understand it, next Monday. So I don't know what to expect from that. We also know that talked about possibly implementing a nationwide mask mandate for his first 100 days in office after he's inaugurated. So I don't know how that would impact decisions here either, but those are other factors at play. But for your consideration, if you chose to lift it, it would just lift the city ordinance.
As Dave said, I think it would appear that what we're trying to do is hopefully having a positive impact. I'm not remarkably compelled to lift anything at this point. If it's giving the appearance of benefiting it, we should continue that.
I agree. Yeah. I think we need to leave it in, especially over the holidays
Yeah.
when people won't probably follow it anyway.
With the original thought that if we got to yellow or green, and we haven't reached that yet.
So we don't need to take specific action to leave it in place. We would only need to take specific action to lift
So
it.
that's correct. It's in place until it's rescinded.
So if the county were to theoretically lift theirs Monday, ours would remain in place, correct? Correct. So we would still have the citywide in place, even though the county is lifted.
Correct.
It is completely separate in the county.
Yeah.
Not hearing a motion, we'll move on to the action agenda. Minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 meeting. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the minutes from December 2nd, 2020.
Second,
Moved by Marcia, seconded by Christie to approve the minutes from December 2nd, 2020 meeting. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. Moving on to appropriation ordinance 23.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 23.
Second that?
Been moved by Commissioner Wentz and seconded by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve appropriation ordinance number 23. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Bids for wastewater treatment plant phase 2.
Mayor and Commissioners, we held the bid letting last week for the phase 2 of the wastewater treatment plant. We're very excited to be moving forward with this project. We received 2 bids, one from BRB Contractors and one from Walters Morgan. Both bids ended up below the engineer's estimate, which we're very excited about. So we are recommending you approve the bid of Walters Morgan Construction this evening. We do have our project engineer, Sarah Unruh, on Zoom tonight. So if you do have questions for her, she'll be able to answer them. Jeremy's here in the audience too, so he can answer any questions that you have.
I really feel like I should ask you a question, Sarah, just because you've been on this, but I feel like we've been pretty well informed in the process.
I'm good. If you want to ask me something, I'm here to answer it, but you don't have to. It's okay.
From start to finish, how long will it take?
The construction time that we have in this contract is about a year. And the reason being for that is that the equipment for the sludge handling takes approximately an estimate of 28 to 34 weeks to come in. And so the overall project time will be quite long, but the way we're going to handle this is upon approval of the award, we will issue a notice to proceed to allow the contractor to start procuring that equipment because of the long lead time. And then once we go through the process to approve the submittals and then they get procurement started and we get a better idea of the schedule, then we will go ahead and issue a second notice to proceed, which will actually be the construction notice to proceed. So at that point in time, that will be the contractor's start date to say, okay, you need to be on site doing work by this date. The total contract time will not change. We'll just issue 2 different notice to proceeds instead of 1 because of the equipment lead time.
for equipment of this nature, is there this similar supply chain issues as we've seen kind of in the past few months?
This particular equipment, so we got an updated delivery time about 3 weeks before we issued this for bid. So at this point in time, we feel like that 28 to 34 weeks is still very on point. But again, once we issue that notice to proceed here for the equipment procurement, we'll have a better idea of what that schedule will look like. But at this point in time, that's what the manufacturers are telling us it will be in that time frame.
Fair enough.
I move to approve the bid from Walters Morgan Construction in the amount of $3,038,064 and to authorize the city manager to sign the notice of award.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hash, seconded by Commissioner Wentz to approve the bid from Walters Morgan Construction in the amount of $3,038,064 and to authorize the city manager to sign the notice of award. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say, oh, sorry. Motion passes. Moving on to design and construction inspection for the taxiway ceiling.
And Commissioners, we have another project out at the airport, and this one will be done kind of in conjunction with the Runway 1836 project. It'll be funded different through the FAA entitlement fund, so 90-10 split, and we plan for it on our capital improvement list. Brad Waller with Benish is here to kind of talk through a little bit more about the project, but tonight we're going to ask for your approval to authorize Benish to proceed with the design work on this project.
Hello, good evening, Brad Waller with Finish. Just a quick update on the current runway project we're on. As you recall, it's a 100% funded supplemental funding project. We're about to do winter shutdown. They're doing temporary seating and erosion control measures today and tomorrow, and that'll probably be about it for the winter shutdown for the next 3.5 months. Coming back in the spring with starting on the paving portions of the project. So they've gotten a long way. It's gone really well so far. Most of the dirt work is done for the new runway. If you go out there and look at it, especially from the air, it's really taking shape and working well. We are already done with really the borrow area of the project, so we're going to release a lot of land to the farmers, or back to the farmers for farming earlier than anticipated. So they will be able to farm a lot of that airport in 2021. Which is soon expected. So everything's going pretty well there. I hope next time I'm here, I'll have the same report for that. And I don't know how many times I'll be here, but hopefully about a year from now, we'll be standing here talking about a very successful project that's completed and done on that portion. This project here is to rehab the existing runway that's going to be a taxiway. It's asphalt pavement. We will just do crack sealing on the project on the existing asphalt, and then do a rejuvenation course of some sort of a sealer to reseal it, protect the base, and then restripe it. It's going to be done in conjunction with the shutdown of that work of that area of the runway once we get the new runway up and going. So we don't anticipate any more downtime, any more headaches to the airport that's already there. The biggest headache for me is trying to make sure as I bid it, I get all the stuff in line. So that's what happens. So it is 90-10 match using the FAA entitlement funds. So. Any questions on anything going on at the airport? Because there's a lot going on.
Exciting to see. This time I'd entertain a motion for the taxiway ceiling.
I move to authorize the city manager to sign work authorization number 6 with Benish for the taxiway pavement maintenance project for $30,433 plus a time and material fee not to exceed $14,431.
Second.
Then moved by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the city manager to sign work authorization number 6 with Finish. Taxiway pavement maintenance, $30,433 plus a time and material fee not to exceed $14,431. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Campbell and Johnson 2021 Professional Services Agreement Addendum.
Mayor Commissioners, we bring this to you every year. Campbell and Johnson has provided city engineering services to us for over 50 years now. And I believe this is the year, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are celebrating your 50th year in business.
Long time.
It's great. Great to have that good, strong working relationship. They do hold a lot of our plans if there's something we don't have a copy of. This consulting agreement just makes it really easy. We don't have to wait for commission to take action anytime that we need to do certain things. Some of the smaller scale, getting some of the small projects, some of the estimates that we need, and just access to some of those documents is done through this agreement. It seems to work pretty well. There's 4 different categories of work. So if there's any particular project that comes up, that will be brought forward to you as a separate cost item, a separate agreement. This year, Campbell Johnson has graciously agreed to provide us this agreement in the same amount as last year, which was also consistent with 2018. So we really appreciate their efforts to help keep our costs down. And so we would ask that you approve this agreement again and authorize us to sign the 2020 on-call engineering consulting agreement. This will be an addendum format instead of just a brand new agreement because there are no changes.
I move to authorize the city manager to sign the addendum for the Campbell and Johnson 2021 professional services agreement.
Second,
So moved by Commissioner Hutchinson and seconded by Commissioner Hash to authorize the city manager to sign the addendum for the Campbell and Johnson 2021 professional services agreement. Is there any further discussion?
I'd just like to say I've always been really impressed with your professionalism, and it's really nice to have you guys in town.
Are you coming back to feed them? And then you're coming back here? Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Housing Authority Board appointments.
Since I'm on the board, I'm speaking kind of for Sheila Jackson, who's the property manager. She's done an excellent job. As I've explained here, we had normally had 5 members, and about 2 to 3 years ago, we got another application, and the commission at that time chose to accept that appointment as well, or accept that expression as well. And so we added a member and went to 6. And that person this summer gave her resignation. And so that put us back down to 5. So now we do have 4 that we could approve, as I said, and I don't know where this got off, but it's unusual to have so many all at one time. And Sheila was really hesitant to say anything about how she wants to handle it. So we're going to kind of just leave it up to the commission, but we can either choose to just go back to a 5-member board or go ahead and accept all 4 of those. But I would ask that one person be named to a 1-year term. Then that would be, I don't know if it's Ryan Carnes or myself that will be up next year. I think it's Ryan. And then at the 2-year, which would be this other person and me at that point, and then the last 2 people would be at a 3-year, then we'd be having 2, 2, and 2, or 2, 2, and 1, however you want to do it. If that makes sense. Listed how many years these folks served, and they're all very passionate about the board and the work that's done.
So does it work to have 6?
It's okay. It's very rare that everyone is all there. But that could be that 6th person was usually the one that wasn't. So the 5 remaining are generally there most times, unless work comes in, because we start at 5:15 and sometimes certain people can't make it from work. But we could really go either way. And it's fine to keep the 6 if we have interest.
I guess one, is it possible to, would there be benefit to allowing the Housing Authority Board to make that decision at their discretion, or is that something that we need to authorize on our part?
Since Sheila's been the property manager, it really hasn't been taken to the board, but normally that's kind of how you do it. And last meeting, one of the board members mentioned every November, I think, that probably the board should discuss it. But right now, these terms all expire at the end of the year, so we don't have time to go back this time. So we won't be meeting again until January. But that will be the plan moving forward, that it goes to the board and the board kind of discusses how they want to. This might have been a little more difficult this time because it's almost the incomplete board, but.
I guess my thought would be that we could, I mean, if we could potentially approve them for terms. I mean, I don't want to simplify by overcomplicating it, but can we just approve them all as is and then let them determine how to address that, and we can address that after the fact? They can come back to us and say, we modify their terms at that point, because maybe Vicky's, you know what, I'll go ahead and take this year, and Michelle says, well, I could be on for 2 years. Well, I don't want to say, well, then Vicky goes on for 2. And maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know that it really matters. I don't want to make a decision for somebody that wants to be able to make a decision for themselves.
Yeah, since this is a board that the city commission appoints, I think however it works best for them, I don't think it's going to be an issue. So if we wanted to go ahead and appoint them and then determine how long of terms those folks want to, however it fits into the equation that we need here, I don't think that would be an issue at all. So
I prefer that, just to let them determine how they want to space it out, as opposed to us kind of, at this point, relatively arbitrarily assigning that.
That'd be fine.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint all 4 members to the board.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson and seconded by Commissioner Wentz to approve all 4 members as expressed to the Housing Authority Board. Their stated terms. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the 2020 encumbrances.
We have one encumbrance for the end of the year for the pool, light pole replacement that fell over from heating and plumbing, and it'd just be $2,500, which is our deductible, and then insurance will cover the difference. But that work won't be performed until after January, so that's why we're going to.
Question? Our deductibles are per incident.
So here's a question. So, because I know with my insurance provider, you have policies where there's basically one deductible per incident, and so at the same storm, I would pay one deductible for all the damage, regardless of maybe where properties. Is the city similar? Like, so if we have a tornado that comes through town, would the city pay one deductible for?
I think that's right.
likely occurrence based.
Yeah.
So a lot of the, especially property damage is occurrence based. So if 3 poles had fallen down, we would get one deductible. I would assume that's generally what it is.
Yeah. The only thing I can think that we had anything close like that, we did have quite a bit of damage at the sports complex. However, it was all at the complex.
Right.
But that was one deductible.
But if we had like the damage at the complex and at a park and a city park, would they consider it to all be one?
Yeah, we'd have to look at the policy. Now that might be, depends on how they define some things, but if it was one storm, it could possibly.
Most insurances will.
They'll try to get you. We could argue it's
They're not all bad
it's
people.
occurrence based, you can argue that, you know, but.
Okay.
Sure, looking. The only time I ever remember having something where we had hail several years ago was, and that was for a different company. So certain thing with Midwest Public Risk.
That's a pool-based.
I move to approve the encumbrance for 2020 in the amount of $2,500.
Second,
It's been moved by Commissioner Wentz and seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve the encumbrance for 2020 in the amount of $2,500. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consideration of Downtown Beautification Committee funding request.
Mayor and Commissioners, we have a downtown beautification. Two of the members are here, Marcia Wentz and Tammy Britt, so we appreciate them being here. They are primarily responsible for making sure that we have the beautiful blue flower pots downtown and that those are planted every year. We do have city staff that does go down and help to water those. We have city staff that sets them out every year and takes them back to storage every year. The reason for that is the type of pots that are out there right now can't handle the expansion and contraction of the soil as it freezes over the winter time. We've lost several of those pots due to breakage over the years and believe it's now time to replace those pots. The committee did some work and did obtain a grant from the Community Foundation, the amount of about $5,000. The total project cost to replace the pots is close to $15,000. So they're asking the city for the remaining 10 to be able to cover those expenses. It would include replacement of all the pot groupings, and the quote in your packet is for the $800 is for a grouping of pots. And it would replace all the existing pots, plus it would expand those so that they were a grouping in front of the Brown Grand, a grouping in front of the police department, and a grouping in front of City Hall. So we span from Lincoln Street to Cedar Street on 6th Street, and they come down to City Hall and include that in downtown as well. A photo of the pot is there. These pots are designed to be out all year long. They're designed to handle that expansion and contraction. So we do, if this is done, it will save quite a bit of city labor as far as taking them in and putting them out every single year. I believe the committee still plans to do some fundraising for the actual plantings that would go inside the pot. So that would not be a city expense, responsibility of city staff and the committee as they so choose to split up that work. The pots that are out there were originally purchased in 2012, so it has been some time. They've lasted quite a while. This project was not included on the CIP list. However, the committee members brought this forward to us. We've been talking about it for a few months, brought it forward here the last week or so, and expressed that if we're able to get them ordered before the end of this year, we can have them ready to go when the pots are set out in March or April this year. If we wait until the first of the year, wait to do other fundraising efforts, it's possible they may not be ready to go this year, or they may be ready in the middle of the year after we've already set out the other pots. So question today is to start a discussion, consider for your consideration to authorize another $10,000 of expenditure to help complete the project purchase. And I would probably defer any other questions to Tammy and Marcia.
You want to talk? Tammy?
What would you like to know then?
They are about the same size.
Yes, I had them make these specifications as close to what we originally had. And the material is really a really nice Terracast. I personally am familiar with them. They're used a lot in a lot of really nice oceanside property, and up in a company that I used to work for, we have them in our Chicago complex, in my LA complex. They're used at Newport Beach. So I was very familiar with them and know that they hold their color really well.
I think that would probably be one of the concerns, anything other than natural terracotta that has a glaze, the tendency of the sun to break down. But
This is actually a resin type.
okay.
It's like a Terracast. I don't know how else to explain it, but they're pretty good and heavy. But it's a plastic, a petroleum-based type plastic.
were they originally, when they were originally purchased, was that through private fundraising? You know, I gotta tell you, those are beautiful. And it so adds our downtown. And I think whatever we can do to help the committee, $10,000, you know, it seems like a big chunk, but honestly, I think we get a lot of benefit in terms of the beautification. And honestly, I would thank you folks who are on that committee, because I know you spend a lot of time watering, planting, and all of the above. So they're really, I think we should go ahead and do it.
I agree. I think it helps the downtown area.
When we have, I mean, I think for us that live here, it's nice to see, but I think one of the things that people comment when they come in from out of town is really, you know, how quaint and how wonderful our downtown is, especially that 6th Street corridor.
If we had, was it Brooks? Brooks, yeah, Richard Brooks, is that his name? That was one of the things that he commented on, was that we needed probably to do some sprucing up in terms of planting, and that's how your committee responded, and this has been great. So the question is, where are we going to find the money?
Well, this would be one blessing in disguise from the coronavirus that has hit us, is that a couple of items that were on our capital improvement list, including some bleacher replacements like that at the sports complex, for example, we were able to use the coronavirus money to pay for 100% of that bleacher replacement, where we had allocated, I think, about $11,000 for bleacher replacement for this next year through capital improvement. That would be one way that we could cover it. Or any other suggestions, or is that's the primary suggested spot?
Do we still have some of that TIF? I mean, that's in the general fund now, correct?
It is, but we had a deadline of August 31st to earmark that for specific projects, so that deadline has passed.
I don't suppose that caught spots have been identified as a primary spreader of.
It's all in how you word it.
We happen to have $11,000 left to spend that we told the county we weren't going to spend, so.
I think that's the perfect way to spend the money then, honestly.
But it doesn't sound like there's a lot of opposition to it, so do we need to formally move to support this gesture?
I'd make a motion to expend $10,000 for the purchase of the replacement flower pots.
Second.
Second.
We get this one over to you.
Yeah.
To move
Thank
by to move by Commissioner Hutchinson and seconded by Commissioner Belden to approve the funding request from not to exceed $10,000 for the Downtown Beautification Committee. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you for your work. Moving on to reports, manager's report.
Mayor and Commissioners, first just want to say thank you so much for all of your support throughout 2020. I know we started the year thinking that we were going to focus on things like reviewing the comprehensive plan and different things like that, and that took a significant turn in the middle of March. And we just appreciate all of your support all the way through, your commitment to continuing everything that we had planned, as well as responding to the coronavirus and everything that entailed too. So really appreciate your work there. As I mentioned before, the coronavirus relief funds, we were allocated almost $294,000 from the county for those funds to spend on items and things that would help us to mitigate the spread of COVID. And we were able to spend all but about $11,000 of those dollars. They have to be spent and paid for, received by December 30th. And we were able to do things that would greatly reduce touch points. Everything from automatic faucet washings and soap dispensers at the Brown Grand and at the Broadway Plaza to mention the bleachers at the sports complex and benches at the parks. Those went from existing wooden to metal and to the recycled rubber, so they can be more easily sanitized if we need to go to that effort. I know Chris and his team did some work with sanitizing bleachers this summer at the softball complex, at the sports complex between games and stuff, and that really helped out a lot. We also were able to go to digital ticketing system for the police department. So instead of handing off multiple copies of tickets to people, we'll be able to do it all digitally, which reduces touch points. Same thing with recreation registrations. Those have all been converted from a paper pencil fashion handing from flyers that Chris makes out to the school teachers, to the school kids, to their parents, and back to the staff at City Hall and back to Chris's office. Now that's on an online format that just opened up this past week. So people can get registered for any activities, and hopefully those will come back online soon. This room is one example of getting us set up for video conferencing, which has proved to be well worth the effort that went through. Appreciate, especially Eric did a lot of research on what we needed to be able to make that work for us. Same thing with the tables and chairs, to be able to get things that were more flexible, allowed for more social distancing, and allowed us to be able to sanitize things easier. Those are just a few of the examples of things that we were able to purchase. And a lot of it, and I know able to purchase as much locally as possible, so that helped out a lot, in addition to just a lot of cleaning supplies and things to make sure that everything stayed clean. So out of 294,000, leaving 11,000 on the table to turn back to the county. If they're able to spend it before the end of December, they get to keep it. If not, they return it back to the state. We thought we did a pretty good job. So thank you for your support in those efforts as well. Any questions for me?
Staff reports? Chief?
Just wanted to mention that one of our new officers, RJ Robinson, graduated from the academy Friday. There's quite a few delays in his progress in the academy. He even switched classes at one point because he had to take some leave for the birth of his son. And then they had a shutdown due to coronavirus. So he jokes around that he should be getting paid state trooper wages since he was in the academy for that extended amount of time. So. Now he's with us. He's gonna go through about 2 or 3 weeks of FTO training, and then he should be out on his own.
Thanks.
Hey, Commissioner Amy asked me to update you on December 21st. There'll be a public hearing notice in the Blade, and it'll run again on January 8th for a public hearing before the Board of Building Trades to look at a draft ordinance for general contractor licensing. Something we've been working on for a couple of years. Had various delays for various reasons, but contractors have been somewhat involved here and there. But we'll probably be bringing an ordinance to this commission around January 20th. We're looking at a January 1 date for starting it, and then like a 6-month grandfathering period, what we call a provisional license, which would allow local contractors who've got a good permit record and to be grandfathered and not have to go take the test. But the difference would be continuing education to renew your license. Be similar to HVAC, plumbing, and electrical licenses, where you'd have to have a certain, and it's not your master, but it'd be the qualified individual. Not the individual is the one who has to have the knowledge, basically. And they can, so we'll be looking at, so you'll probably be hearing stirrings from the contractor world.
Have you received much pushback thus far?
Yes, there's not a bunch, but it's like with anything, some people are looking forward to it. The ones that have been hounding the board for years to have something in place, especially other contractors, that have to be licensed, electricians and stuff. And then the other side of it is some of them don't think it's even necessary unless our town were to have a growth spurt or something. The problem with that is, Manhattan Salina have all experienced it. If you wait till you need it, it's too late. And then you're behind the curve. And so we'll get it started and see what happens. And we've got some things set up for next year, and hopefully one of them is online applicant, limit touch points so we can do applications online. Eventually maybe get to where we can send inspection records online and stuff, so I'm not even handing somebody a copy of the video. We'll see how.
weeks ago. I told you about the online software that Amy said it's now up and running completely. We're still kind of learning the ins and outs of it and continuing to add information to it. So it's not fully done, but it is operational. You can see a lot of programs we already have going on or will be coming up. We also are doing a drawing I wanted to mention real quick, giving away some more chamber bucks, some pickleball gear, and some basketballs. Just trying to get people into the system, getting used to it, and then trying to through the whole registration process with the drawing. So it's completely up and running, kind of ever changing, but we got her going here for the end of the year.
Any other staff reports? All right, commissioner comments? Marcia?
Well, I want to congratulate your officer for sticking with it. I mean, it sounds like it was a long process. Glad to have him on board. It's always good to have a new one. And than that, it's been interesting, the mask mandate. I was telling somebody today, I drove down 6th Street, it was fairly early before a lot of the stores were open, but I saw 6 individuals going into stores. 2 of them had masks on, 4 of them didn't. So, you know, I rolled my eyes. But it was interesting, the 2 that had them on were teenagers. The 4 that didn't were adults. And that probably tells us why the schools are still being able to be open and they're doing what they're supposed to. So I appreciate it.
Reminder.
Huh?
The kids don't seem to mind.
No.
Really, the only thing I have to say is that whether we're ready for it or not, the holiday season is here and Concordia looks ready for Christmas. And it makes my heart happy because it's not the thing that I'm really into right at the moment, but I'm glad that the Grinch didn't take it away from us. So thanks to all the employees who got the snowflakes put up. I always love to see those. So I know it takes a lot of work.
I'm excited to be here. So it's good to be interesting to be on this side of it, but I'm excited to serve. And if you haven't yet, you know, send your kids down to put a letter for Santa Claus. I think that was such a nice idea by Jessica Brooken. And I think there's been a few hundred kids who have submitted letters, and that's a really nice touch, especially this year.
Virginia?
I just want to congratulate the new officer, and I agree with Ashley. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we'll be a good asset.
Fresh eyes, fresh ears will certainly be benefit. I very much humbled and appreciate the nomination. I will work diligently to be a good steward of this position. I feel really fortunate to be a part of this commission. Something that I mentioned to Christy earlier is I look forward to a day when it's not as remarkable as this, but I feel very fortunate and very honored to sit on a commission with such strong female leadership. Joke that that's why I needed a guy to run it, you know, make sure things stay. But I am a man in a household with 3 women, and so I absolutely understand that I make no decisions. So anyway, that's my wife knows how honest that is. It's awesome. It's great to be here. I too, with Christy, I think that this has been a very challenging year. We aren't traveling as much, but when we do make our way back into town, we crest that hill either from the north or the south, and you see those snowflakes. It lets us know that we're home. It is a nice part of what makes Concordia a wonderful place to be. So, any other, yes, anything else? I believe we'll entertain a motion to adjourn for a study session.
I move to adjourn to a study session to discuss the employee pay scale.
Second?
It's been moved by Commissioner Hash and seconded by Commissioner Wentz to adjourn to a study session discussing the employee pay scale. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Sorry, Gina, I'll get you in next time.
Sounds good.
Passes. This time we'll adjourn to the study session.
Do we need a study session? Okay.
I'm good.
Eric, are you gonna leave the Zoom going so we can have Gina on here? Okay. Mayor and commissioners, I guess. We lost Justin, we're good. Okay, we'll keep going. In your packet, there was a memo and some information described about proposed adjustments to the classified employee pay scales. I think it was earlier last spring, we had talked about some possible changes. At that point in time, you approved some changes to the sick leave, whereby when an employee maxes out, I believe they're able to get a portion of that back based on their years of service. And that's paid out in December of every year. And that's going well. That helps with retention of long-term employees. An employee would have to be here at least 10 years to even hit that potential for max out mark. We're still struggling with the recruitment of employees into entry-level positions and keeping them beyond 4 years. So Stacy put together some data last spring that showed that employees either leave us before 1 year, they realize the job is just not for them, it's just not working out, or they stay right up until about that 4-year mark, which on our current employee pay scale, that's the time when the pay scale stops getting annual advancements and freezes for a couple of years. So an employee, even if they're working hard, by the time they hit year 4, they're fully trained and fully productive, and they hit year 4 and their reward is maybe a COLA if the commission, there's no other pay increase for merit based on that. Additionally, what we're finding is when we go to try to recruit employees, we are really struggling to find employees that want to come work for the entry level wages that we're offering. You also see table 1 in your memo there that shows brief analysis of employee separation. This is a fancy way of saying that when employees leave us, over a third of them are leaving to take a job for more money. And when we say more money, we're talking $1, $2 an hour more. So, and they're going to jobs where they're performing similar skills. So it's not even a wholesale change. We know we're not going to compete with the private sector. We're not going to compete with the nursing field, for example. We're not going to compete with the welding or manufacturing field, for example. But we know in other similar jobs, whether it be clerical jobs or maintenance worker jobs or truck driving type jobs, those are still areas where we can compete. We can compete should be able to compete on pay and on benefits. What we're seeing from our recruitment folks or from people who are job seeking, our benefits package is really good, but we're seeing that people need the cash in hand that's going to put the bread on the table. That's where we're losing out. We have a unique opportunity in this coming year with the expiration of the TIF district. There is about $230,000 of revenue that has been for the last 20 years been put into a project fund and earmarked for more reinvestment back in the community the way of infrastructure. Now that the TIF district has expired, that $230,000 of revenue is still coming in, and it's coming in because of the reinvestment in our community. It's an increase in property tax revenue to us because we did that investment with that district. When now we have more flexibility with that money, it dumps back into the general fund. And as staff has discussed, we believe that a responsible use of that money would be to put a portion of it toward capital improvement projects, would provide the maintenance of that infrastructure. And also we have a unique opportunity to reinvest in our employees. And we believe that it's a good thing to try to do that when that money first comes in. We don't want to get used to spending it on other things and then try to pull it back from those things and try to invest in the employees later. So that's why we're bringing this to you at this point in time. So we'll go back to that table 1 in your packet. A third of our employees are leaving us for money in the last 5 years. You can see that number has steadily increased in employees that leave us in just the last couple of years. Second to that 36% is people that retire. That's about 19%. People that retire from us, that's fabulous. They've been here a long time. They're able to separate from employment at a point in time when most of the time they still have their health and they're able to go out and enjoy life, and that's wonderful. We want them to do that. Then 13.89% of people leave because they choose to move elsewhere, and that could be for another job opportunity, or that could be because the spouse leaves. And then fourth, are employees that are terminated from us. Things just aren't working well, they aren't performing well, and they are terminated. There's a few other reasons that employee leaves us, but those were onesies, twosies, and really didn't hit our mark. But the one that we want to focus on is those that leave for more money. And again, that's for maybe $1, $2 an hour that they're leaving us. And the current pay scale provides for merit increases at certain points in time. The way our scale is set up is an employee comes in at a base level. It's a range and steps. So the ranges are commensurate with what the job description and the job duties are. It's at a certain range based on what your demands are and what your skill level is. You come in at a base pay, and then at 6 months, you have an evaluation. If you do well at that 6 month point in time, you get a bit of an increase. And then again, at a year, you're evaluated again and you get an increase. And that gets you to the end of year 1. Then at the end of year 2 and end of year 3, you're eligible for that merit increase. At the end of year 4, you have to wait until the end of year 5 to get an increase. Does that make sense? And then for the next several years, you have to wait every other year. Then after that, when you're a fully seasoned employee, you're waiting 3 years in between. So that doesn't seem appropriate to me in particular. It doesn't seem appropriate to some of our staff in particular, because by that point in time, again, your employees are seasoned, they're fully productive. They can get out on their own. They know what needs to be done. They've had probably some opportunities for advancement. They've had opportunities to enhance their skills. And yet we're rewarding them with saying, you don't get a merit increase for your good work. Just go ahead and stay right where you're at. So what we want to propose tonight is that, number one, we adjust that pay scale. We want to leave that base 6 month, 1 year piece in. But then after that, for the next 9 years, we want to give them an opportunity for a merit increase every year. And then after that, instead of every 3 years, we want to make that to be every 2 years. And the reason we want to keep that separation in there slightly is so that they don't top out too fast. Employees will still top out around year 20. Right now, they can make it to year 34 before they don't have any more room to go. But we believe, again, we're targeting those employees in those first 10 years. They need some reason to stay with us, some reason to stick with it once they're trained up and productive. Once an employee's been here for 10 years, we believe that they have had at least one opportunity to advance, whether it's a move into another department and advancing or advancing within their own department. That may not always be the case, but there should be at least some opportunity to advance their skill level, which can down a range or advance them promotion-wise. And the other thing we want to propose is to have just a wholesale increase to the wages on that pay scale. What we've tossed around, what we've kind of built this around is proposal for $1 an hour for the classified pay scale, which is the hourly pay scale only. $1 an hour would be equivalent to $1 an hour on the non-fire scale. There's a conversion formula that converts it to the fire scale because the number of hours that they work, that makes it less than $1. So that's kind of what this whole thing is predicated around. We did quite a bit of research. Our department heads called around to a lot of different cities. I asked them to do that work because they know which cities have departments that are structured similar to theirs, regardless of size. If there's a department that's structured similar, I think it's important to compare us to that department, and then we can adjust for population. We also compared similar jobs at communities that are around our size and within our region. So I tend to think of, in terms of school district terms, our other NCKL cities that are about our size. Found is that right now, if we don't make any changes, we are at or below average with most of our entry level pay. And that's not where we want to be. We're not an at or below average city. We're not an at or below average employer. We believe that we have very, very good people that do the work to take care of the city. So we want to try to get above average. We also know that we need to be good stewards of the resources that we're given. And I mentioned before that TIF money that would come in, that new revenue that comes in starting next year. We have an opportunity, and we believe that we can afford $1 an hour increase on those pay scales. So that's reasonable. A reasonable expenditure, and that still leaves us money to put over into the project side or the maintenance and infrastructure side of things. So we're still able to align with that commission goal. We come up with several options for you. We had a hard time coming up, I'm going to say, with the unified recommendation for you as department heads. It's hard to get 8 or 9 people to think right along the same lines. So we've come up with some options for you. Again, this is a first round discussion tonight. There's no need and no expectation to make a decision tonight on this, but we'd rather get your feedback on these options and give us more homework if you need more information. But we do want to bring it back to you in January to kind of discuss further and give you the potential for action. So we'll go briefly through the options. Option A is do nothing. It's always an option. You can decide that we just need to leave things the way that they are. Options B, C, and D, you can do them each independently, or you could group them together depending on what you see fit. Option B is removing range 7 from the pay scale. Range 7 no longer fits our needs or skills or reflects the skills or abilities of our workforce. In fact, we have 3 employees right now that are on range 7. They're all from the same department, and they were planning to be moved up to range 8 anyway because the skills that they need. So range 7 would be a maintenance worker. Range 8 is maintenance worker / operator. I'm going to pick on Ron, for example. All of his guys need to know how to run a skid loader or a grader or a dump truck or something of that nature that requires an additional skill level. They can't just be a maintenance worker. They can no longer, we're not privileged to have the staffing levels that we can have an assistant maintenance worker, somebody that can just ride in the truck and operate a shovel, for example. They all have to be able to operate that heavy duty equipment. So therefore they are all operators. So if it was his 3 guys that were on range 7, if we remove range 7, we would get them the additional training, the skill set that they need, and they would move to range 8. And that's something that would be planned for anyway. That makes sense for his department. Option C is to adjust the length of time between the merit step increase and eligibility. That's what I talked about making it so you have 1 year between for years 1 through 10. Then years 11 through 20, you have 2 years between a merit eligibility increase. Option D is the across the board wage increase. And we talked a little bit about how those conversions are done and what it would take. If we choose to do an across the board wage increase of $1 an hour to the non-fire scale, the result is an increase in payroll expenses from the general fund by just over $100,000 and an increase to the utility fund by just over $22,000. So the general fund can handle it with that increase, that TIF revenue that's no longer TIF project earmark revenue. And the utility fund can handle it with some minor adjustments to their maintenance and their project lines in their budget. So this is possible. There's some sub options D1 through 4 you can see there. So sub option D1 is what was just described. Increase the wage of every range and step by $1 an hour on the non-fire classified pay scale and follow the current formula to convert that over to the fire pay scale, which results in about 75 cents on the dollar for the fire folks. Sub option D2 is increase the wage rate of every wage range and step by $1 an hour on the fire and non-fire scales, and that would increase the general fund expense by about another $6,700 a year. Option D3 is to increase the wage rate of every range and step by a fixed annual amount on both pay scales. So instead of looking at an hourly wage, you say everybody gets $2,000 a year, and then you divide that into whatever it is for the hourly wage, and that's the increase. Option 4 would be for us to go back to the drawing board and take a look at a department-specific wage rate to achieve a specific percentile at or above the average. And you can see, I believe I included some of the charts there that kind of show the comparison between the different communities and different tables that you have in your packet to show kind of how far off we are on some and how far off we are on others. What we did find is that if we include the COLA increase and the just general dollar an hour increase for the non-fire scale and use the conversion, we get up to the average or slightly above the average for every job except for police officer, dispatch, and fire EMT. Now, police officer is very, very close. They're within a few cents. I think dispatch was within about 60 or 70 cents, but fire is still down by closer to $1. So we just can't seem to get there based on what we can afford. So based on what we know, we think that dollar is a reasonable starting place, unless you want to send us back to the drawing board for things. But again, there's a table in here that shows the impact to the general fund, the utility fund with the dollar increase. There are several tables in here that show what happens if we compare those pay scales to the average and based on the comparable communities that we have for the jobs that are available in there. You can see those tables and how those compare. Table 3 comparison. I've got 2 table 3s in here. Table 3 shows the red highlighted ones are the ones that are below average still, and that's the current wages. And table 5 shows what happens if we do that COLA increase and that dollar. Again, it shows the police officer, dispatch, and fire still being low. So I will stop talking, and if you have questions, we can go back just for reference where you want us to go back to, and let's go ahead and have a good discussion.
So your proposal would, the dollar increase would be a one-time dollar, so it just moves the scale up,
Yes.
correct? Yes.
On the fire and EMS, it's grayed out there. Firefighter 1, EMT, it's grayed, and then it's just firefighter EMT. What is that? I mean, why is it grayed out? Is there a difference?
It's grayed out because we don't have separate firefighter and EMT job descriptions that are combined, and some of the communities that we were comparing to had those as separate organizations. So we had to put all those in there so we could do a comparison straight across. And what we ended up doing for presentation is if other communities had the separate firefighter EMT, we just took that completely out. And for that department, we compared only to those other departments that had a combination firefighter EMS department.
Okay, thank you.
Can you comment on what departments we see the highest amount of turnover?
Without that data in front of me, I would say PD is one of the big areas. We tend to lose officers. I think, Rick, you guys are kind of trading back and forth with sheriff quite a bit. Interviewed 2 candidates for 2 positions, I believe, within the last week. And then the other one that I most recently remember is Stacy's area with the front office staff at City Hall. I think it took us close to 6 months to find qualified candidates to fill 2 positions there. That was very, very challenging. We had one candidate that lasted the less than a year point in that time, so 6 months to really get those filled. Ron and Jeremy typically always have positions open, Ron more so than Jeremy. So people really don't seem to want to get out and work in all types of weather with a lot of hard manual labor. And so it's difficult to find people that want to do that kind of work, but it's necessary work. It's the work that everybody notices every single day, from the time that you turn on your shower in the morning till you're driving to work in the morning or home at night. You see the results of the work that they do. So, and all the jobs are very, very important. I know Eric is looking for a firefighter EMT right now, and because we've had a vacancy in captains, has been able to pull from within. And I believe he said that for the first time since 1998, our reserve pool is so small that he's had to open it up to open it up to outsiders, I guess, to apply for the firefighter EMT positions, because our reserve pool is so small. So again, we're struggling to get that candidacy pool filled so that we can kind of pull from that. And so really, probably all across the board would be a good answer. Those are just the most recent examples of what we have.
My goal, and I'm not sure which combination of options and sub options will best help us accomplish that. I would like to bring our wage to at least the level where we are competitive with our neighbors, other communities, as a starting point. If the $1 an hour does that, so be it. I think that as far, but I don't know how to accomplish this, but I would like to reward the employees more who demonstrate good stewardship of their position. I think that there are COLA increases across the board, but if someone has a person on their team, so I mean, I guess I don't necessarily just want random step increases kind of arbitrarily in a year. I think that that's part of what a COLA is for. But if we see somebody that's really going above and beyond in any of our departments, I would like to give them an opportunity to be able to make more at that step. So I don't know how to build all of that into a budget where, I think that's difficult to plan for. But so I think I want to raise our base, our starting point, to where we're able to be attractive to potential employees, as well as being able to retain them with the wages. But I would also like to further reward those at step points. We're really knocking it out of the park. And I think that those are the folks who are going to generally work more towards promotion anyway. But
one of the things I know that some other communities do is that instead of a fixed step increase, because all of our step increases equate to about 1%, it's about 15 to 20 cents depending on where you're at on the scale. One thing that other communities do is they'll offer supervisors the option to give somebody, if they deserve it, anywhere between a 1% and a 3% raise at their evaluation point in time. That is a possibility. That would take some significant looking to see what our mins and maxes would be. That would be very difficult to look at budget wise. But that is one option to be able to address a question that you, or the goal that you would try to accomplish, which is rewarding the people that really are stellar, outstanding employees.
You asked for homework.
Yep. Another option would be to look at it as maybe we set aside a fixed amount that would be for, that sounds kind of weird to say in the public realm, but end of the year bonuses. So maybe you have an employee that went above and beyond and it really showed and they were really recognized even publicly. So I'm thinking, for example, how we recognize the special work that John Primo did the other couple meetings ago, how he had gone above and beyond. If you had some metrics that you could then tie to that, so you would know when you would offer that bonus, then at the end of the year, you could say, hey, your performance showed that, and that would be a fixed dollar amount. That would be easier to budget. It's not normal for public entities to offer end of the year bonuses. So that would be something different, but that would be another way to accomplish it.
I guess kind of where my mind is that it is going to be an increased expenditure. I believe that our employees are one of our greatest assets, so it's a worthwhile expenditure. But at the same time, I'd like to be able to, in a way, meet our employees in the middle, where if you're showing up on a regular basis and you're doing your job, that's worth something. Absolutely, that's worth something. And we want to recognize that. But to kind of go above and beyond that, just to put more money at it, and not at all to diminish the work that our employees do, but to have that be an even greater incentive to where there's a greater potential for somebody to earn and to see that potential in employment within the city, that I'm most likely guaranteed this, but I also know if I really get in there and hustle, there's a likelihood for me to be able to make more.
Right.
And maybe put a little more skin in the game. Again, not that maybe all of our guys and gals are already given 110%, and in that case, then we reward that with a merit increase. But just put money out there, I'm not sure really.
It'd be very difficult for administration of any kind to earmark employees. I think you have to remember that some people are going to do a better job than others. That's just nature. Maybe they are more, just comes with them, you know. But to have an administrator say, okay, at the end of the year, you get $500 because you did a real job. And the guy's working next to finds out. He said, well, I worked right alongside him and I did the same thing. Why didn't I get it? So it puts a lot of pressure on your department heads and maybe a lot of friction in your department.
I think in a public entity such as this, especially, that's true. I understand what you're talking about, but I'm just not sure that I want to put the department heads even in that position where they have to say, you know, this employee did exceptional work, but this guy wasn't quite as exceptional. I don't know.
I don't disagree with that. Theoretically, the pressure's not on the department head, the pressure's on the employee.
Well, in an ideal world.
Yeah.
Let's make it.
But it'd be like.
The other side is though, why should I be talking about what I'm getting in my paycheck?
Well, yeah, but people talk.
They do.
That's one
And
thing.
it'd be like a school teacher getting a bonus because they got an award. They were doing their job.
Sure.
And, or even when I worked at the hospital, they didn't give, you know, you were on a pay scale. Your evaluation was all right, then you. So I'm like, you know, I agree with Christy. It's just, it it's a public thing. It'd be like the county giving extra money to somebody. So I
guess
think
like-
that's hard to do.
I guess my comments for this year, it's a tough year for our business community. You know, even just in my previous position, whenever public entities would raise wages like this, it causes a little bit of an upheaval in your downtown. And you made comments earlier, Amy, about how we can't compete with private. I would argue sometimes the opposite. The private can't compete with public entities in our town. A lot of our businesses, they lose employees to the county, they lose employees to the city, they lose employees to, I know like recently you've experienced it the other way around, but I think that that's actually more rare. But that might be my assumption, and that just might be from a few folks who are, you know, understandably a little grumpy sometimes to lose an employee that they've trained for months and months and months to a public entity. So I would ask, is there any, I know that we did comparisons to other cities, but in reality, probably the employees aren't moving to another city to take that position in Salina. They're moving to another job within the town or the community. Do you think that would be a fair assumption?
It's kind of split. We have employees that have moved to other towns to take similar jobs.
Okay.
Take on Eric's group of fire EMTs. There's been some that have bounced over to Mitchell County because they pay more just on the EMS side than we do in combination fire EMS.
Sure.
As an example. Ron's lost 2 employees this past year, I think, over to the county. And one. Okay. Yeah, so whatever to the county. So I think it's, and as Stacy, I think has lost to other private employers. So for similar work. So I think it's, yeah, there's.
I guess what I would look for and would be helpful to me, is there a chance, and I think it's been a while since we've done a look at what wages are in the private business community, and try to figure out a way to kind of match up the jobs. There are some jobs that just aren't going to match, of course, but is there a way to, I know it's a lot of work, but doing that along with the benefit package too, I think that's where there's really an edge. With the public entities. So yeah, they may pay 50 cents more an hour, but they don't get health benefits. And I'm not saying that, I think sometimes the pressure is good for business. It pushes everyone to get their wages up, and that's a good thing, but it's a tough year, and it's looking bad for a lot of our businesses in our community. And just to have, you know, one more thing kind of pushing on them is a little tough. So I would like to look at what our business community is looking like too.
I think we need to do department specific, just because, and of course I have an insight on the law enforcement side, but the police department and the fire department, you know, those guys and gals put their lives on the line, you know, whereas I'm in the private sector, but I sit at a desk 8 hours a day. So to me, maybe I don't deserve quite as much per hour because my life isn't on the line every day, every shift.
Thank you, Regina. Got that noted too. Any other thoughts or homework items, things to consider?
Okay, so we do it next year. And then how much of an increase, that you probably won't, maybe not be able to figure this, but okay, so then the next year, how much is it gonna add to the budget when they get their merit increase? You know, because, you know, if you give a bonus, it's a one-time thing. And you don't have to give it the next year. But if you're raising the base wages, then it keeps going up every year. And that
This
was,
is the increase every year. I mean, there will be a COLA on top of it, but the 120, that's more paying out every year than we are now. So yeah, that's,
at least, because
Right.
some of these people are, I mean, they're gonna get a merit increase beside the COLA.
the merit is included in that 120. 137,000, 113,000 from general fund. But that has the merit in there. The merit accounts for about 13,000 in the general fund.
So that'd
Every
be,
year.
yeah, that's what I meant. How much, because each year it's gonna go up that much.
And Martha, I think you're right then, where that's, each step is a fixed amount, so that's easy to predict. Then when we do the COLAs, that's a percentage, so you're right, if we increase everything all at once,
Everything.
then that COLA is gonna
increases.
get. And that's part of where we wanted to stay, when we looked at just that dollar as a starting point. Again, that would be about half of that additional revenue that's coming into the general fund, for example. So we didn't want to try to max out that because we recognize that it's going to go up every year. So we tried to stay at about half of that.
About a plan where we would phase in some of those increases for merit. So we don't have to take the bite all at once, do the bite all at once. I'm just trying to think of other options. I'm in agreement that it appears that there are a number of departments that are significant. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's significant if it's your paycheck. And something needs to be done, and I'm glad that we're looking at it. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that, you know, it's taxpayer money. And like you said, Ashley, everybody's hurting right now. So if there's a way we can spread it out.
So you're talking phased in, when you say phase in for a merit increase, are you saying phasing in like the timing on the pay scale?
Yeah, I
or
wonder
phasing
if
in-
you did the COLA and the dollar increase. But I do think you need to take a look at some of those other departments that are markedly below market value. But then also go ahead with your merit increases, but they wouldn't be enacted for at least another year.
Okay, so keep that where it's like 6 months and a year, and then a year, and then 2 years between, and 3 years between, keep that in place for a while, and then.
For
look
the
at-
coming year. I mean, they're gonna get a nice increase if they get a COLA and an additional amount of money on the base.
Okay.
Trying to go through all the problems we're trying to solve with this. One is to make ourselves locally and regionally competitive, right? We're working to address employee retention. And we're also wanting to my hope would be to set something in place to where we don't keep reinventing the wheel, where we get things in, we get our wages in a place where we allow the COLA to serve its purpose and we don't continue to reevaluate this. I know that there's some, the ways in which all of our employees clock in, the time that they spend is sometimes different, I think, between the fire department and other departments. Certainly want to get, I mean, all of our departments are critical. I want to be able to drive on a road. I want to be able to turn my water on. Certainly, if something's going on, I want to be able to call law enforcement, call the fire department. I know a lot of families would be upset if the recreation department wasn't up and running. So I think we want to solve that, as well as how to find that equitable place where we're taking care of all the people who take care of us. So I think looking at where we are competitive publicly, privately in our area would be good. I do think that as part of that consideration, we have to look at our benefits package, and we have to include that in. I don't know the number of places that offer the insurance options that we do as a city. And maybe at that point, Amy, you said that cash is king for some folks, then maybe we need to fold into this an insurance plan that puts more of the cash into their hand. An employee is given that option. Do you want this wage, which has with it this insurance, because in a way to share that cost, we can give you the money, but you're going to have to put more of the insurance, or you can have the access to this insurance plan, which is phenomenal. In today's market is really a remarkable plan. It's more expensive now than it's ever been, but in the insurance world, it's a phenomenal plan because that is absolutely worth something. So yeah, you can say that, yes, you're going to get $30,000 a year for this job, but if you were to get cash for this insurance policy, you're actually making quite a bit more. So the hourly wage may not be that seemingly significant, but the support that it brings with it is.
Based on my experience, I'm just going to tell you, especially for those new employees, people in the first 4 years, they're typically young. They don't think they're ever going to get sick. They may or may not have a family, and they don't think they need insurance, honestly. So, your idea is good, that maybe a graduated insurance plan might be worthwhile, but they look at the bottom line. They look at the dollars. They don't care about, they really don't. Teachers are like that.
It's honestly not till that year's like 5 to 10 probably that people start caring about retirement. They start caring about that, that health insurance.
I think about 15 years in is when people start thinking, oh, what am I going to do when I can't work anymore? So, yeah.
Well, and they may by that time have a family.
Exactly, yeah.
My first high deductible insurance plan medical bill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is all coming from me. I really think we're doing a good job of clarifying your options, aren't we, Amy?
You've given me a lot of homework, so it may not be the first meeting in January that we bring this back. But I do appreciate the feedback. I know that we'll go back and discuss it. We'll go back and do as much research as we can and bring you some things back. Let you know that we have looked at it, and we'll go from there.
I think finding that balance point between where we're being the best stewards of our employees as we can be, while also being the best stewards of taxpayer money as we can be, and wherever that sweet spot is, how we can achieve that, I think is really where we should be.
Amy, I have one more thing. With the fire and the law enforcement, I don't know if we need to somehow include, like if we can retain those guys and gals so they don't have to pay for the training, the law enforcement academy, and I'm assuming we pay for some sort of training for the fire and EMT also. If we can retain those people, those departments, would that save the city ultimately in those fees? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. I'll have to look into that a little bit more deep because I don't have that memorized yet. So yeah, that's a good point too.
And in my previous role in the, I guess, semi-private mental health world, that was a major competing point, was different agencies would offer to cover portions or all of continuing education. And that was a sell, that you had X number of dollars per year or per license renewal period to pursue continuing education. And they either provided that within the agency or they would send you someplace. So that might be something along with the lines Regina's saying, is to be able to provide that continuing education. If somebody needs more certification or more this or that, we could support them in that effort, which invests in their professional development as well.
We'll take a look at that too and kind of see what we're doing within each department. Anything else?
None of that.
Yes,
I was gonna say, are you sure you want to ask?
Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.